Our guest today is the founder of nutritionfacts.org, a science-based nonprofit charity committed to bringing the medical literature to you and breaking down the latest in evidence-based nutrition research and presenting the results in ways that are easy to understand. And I've been challenged with a lot of things that are not so easy. He regularly shares videos, blogs, webinars, live Q&As, guides, infographics, and more without commercial bias, sponsors, or ads. So every one of us can make the best dietary and lifestyle choices. He is also the heralded author of the instant and phenomenal New York Times bestsellers, How Not to Die, the How Not to Die Cookbook, How Not to Die Diet, and How Not to Age, among others. Welcome to the Motivation Show, Dr. Michael Greger.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, you're such a great hawker. I need you on to do some ads or something.
Well, as I said to you before we got on the air, I'm very excited to interview you because what you're doing is right up my alley, and I'm
Great.
I'm a guinea pig in the world of medical science as well because of my own issues. So I'm always learning, and so we want to start out to learn a little bit about actually what kind of doctor you are. Would you classify yourself as a board certified lifestyle medicine doctor?
Yes, indeed. Lifestyle medicine is my chosen profession, and it all started with my grandmother. I was just a kid when my grandma was sent home in a wheelchair, essentially to die with end-stage heart disease. She already had so many bypass surgeries, basically run out of plumbing at some point, confined in a wheelchair, crushing chest pain. Her life was over at age 65. But then she heard about this guy, Nathan Pritikin, one of our early lifestyle medicine pioneers. And what happened next is actually detailed in Pritikin's biography. He talks about Frances Greger, my grandmother. They wheeled her in and she walked out. Though she was given a medical death sentence at age 65, thanks to a healthy diet, was able to enjoy another 31 years on this planet till age 96 to continue to enjoy her 6 grandkids, including me. So that's why I went into medicine. That's why I practice lifestyle medicine. That's why I started the website nutritionfacts.org, why I wrote the book How Not to Die, why all the proceeds from all my books are donated directly to charity. I just want to do for everyone's family what Pritikin did for my family.
So why do you make those donations all to charity? What inspires you?
Well, because of the commercially corruptive influence. Well, first of all, there's lots of good things to do in the world. I think we should all be donating. But also, there's a critical need, particularly these days, for having an objective, viewpoint untarnished by commercial influence, right? These days, influencers can be paid by any number of corporate entities to hawk all sorts of crazy products. But I don't want people to think I'm getting big broccoli money to that if I'm telling people to eat broccoli, it's because broccoli is actually good for you, not because someone's slipping cash in my pocket. So even beyond just refusing to accept, corporate sponsors or kickbacks or ads or supplement deals or God knows what else, I'd still be selling books that have a particular message. And so one could understandably be like, well, the only reason you're telling people to eat X, Y, and Z is because you're lining your pockets with book money, right? And I didn't even want people to do that. I want people to be like, oh, he's not making a penny off of any of his books. Oh, maybe he's actually publishing these books because he wants to improve the health and well-being of myself and my family. Yes, that's the reason. I didn't want people to have to guess. Well, wait a second. Is he doing it, selfishly? Or is he, he's doing it just as a way to help people and to help his own, situation? I wanted to be very clear the motivation behind my the work that I do.
Well, I'm glad that we're able to sort of get rid of a lot of those skeptics because, of course, there's always skeptics when it has to do with this field. And so I think by you donating that money, I think that proves a lot about who you are and what you're trying to do. And I've been following you for a long time, so I know that you're the real deal. So, your book How Not to Die has resonated like literally globally. It's a global phenomenon. And the
10
book
year,
leads,
10-year anniversary just
yeah,
came out.
yeah,
Dun,
10
dun,
years,
dun,
right?
last week. Just
Congrats.
came out.
Yeah. And, you say, start in the book, it says discover the foods scientifically, it's a big word, proven to prevent and reverse heart disease. And you also said something very profound. You say we are still eating ourselves into early graves, and that cigarettes kill thousands and thousands of Americans each year, but so does the American diet. So that leads us to the big question. What do we eat?
Indeed. According to the Global Burden of Disease Study, the a leading cause of death and disability in the United States is the American diet, overtaking tobacco smoking years ago now. And so, yeah, cigarettes may kill as many as 500,000 Americans every year, as their diet may kill even more. And so, if you look at studies of identical twins, for example, only about a 25% of the difference in lifespan between people is due to genetics. So, for what we can do over the majority of which we have some control, we can look to the blue zones, these areas of exceptional longevity historically around the world, where they all center their diets around whole plant foods. So they're minimizing their intake of processed foods, meat, dairy, sugar, eggs, salt, while maximizing fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, which are beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils, nuts and seeds, mushrooms, herbs, and spices, basically real food that grows out of the ground. These are our healthiest choices.
How about oil? That's a topic that I often get into with people. They kind of accept the vegan part of it, where they eat well, more actually, the better word I think is whole food, plant-based, because vegan could mean lots of bad stuff in it as well.
Sure.
But, people want to fight with me literally and tell me that their extra virgin olive oil is great. Is it?
Well, compared to what? Compared to lard, absolutely. Right? Compared to tallow, absolutely. But I encourage people to eat whole food sources of fat because then you're not missing out on all that nutrition. When you take a walnut and turn it into walnut oil, you're getting rid of all the fiber, most of the vitamins and minerals, there's a little vitamin E, but there's just not much left. It's basically, oil's like the table sugar of the fat kingdom. Most sugar these days comes from beets. And so you take a beet, which is a healthy food, and you remove all the nutrition, you're left with table sugar. Okay. Like you just stripped away the nutrition. Like, why would you do that? Same thing when you, make corn oil out of corn, you better just eat it on the cob instead.
So, Dr. Greger, I think that the biggest issue I find when I discuss this with people is what do I cook with? Like, if I can't cook with
Oh,
oil, how am I going to cook?
Oh, well, you can saute in brine or wine or water or broth or anything you want to. Balsamic vinegar. You can it's not easy to get. It's not hard to keep things from sticking. You use a air fryer is an easy way to crisp things up without oil. Never there's no problem.
So, we all have heard that heart disease is the number one killer. And so many people are walking around with coronary artery disease, probably don't even know it. I think that's the most common form, right? And they go to the doctor, and the number one thing that the doctor focuses on is lowering the LDL cholesterol. Is that the main objective?
Well, I wish everybody knew that heart disease was the number one killer. I think most men do, but I think most women don't. So the number one killer of women is heart disease, and most women don't actually know that. And it's not only that most people with heart disease don't know it, the number one cause of death from heart disease by a small margin is something called sudden cardiac death, meaning your first symptom is your last. You don't even know you have heart disease. You've never been diagnosed with heart disease. And from that first symptom, you're dead within 60 minutes. And so it's like, an ounce of prevention is worth way more than a pound of cure because there is no cure for dead. So that's why it's critically important. So it turns out that the standard American diet is so toxic to our arteries that by age 10, nearly all children have, based on autopsy studies of accident victims, all children raised on a standard American diet already have what are called fatty streaks building up inside their arteries, the first stage of the disease, which can turn to atherosclerotic plaques in our 20s, get worse in our 30s, and then start killing us off. And so the question is not whether or not to eat healthy to prevent heart disease. It's whether or not you want to eat healthy to reverse the heart disease you very likely already have, whether you know it or not. And you say, wait a second, can you actually reverse heart disease? Yes, that's what Pritikin initially showed. And then Dr. Ornish proved in a randomized controlled trial published in The Lancet in summer of 1990. Dr. Esselstyn has done some tremendous work beyond that, focusing just on the diet piece and forgetting the rest of the lifestyle components. And so it's really the only diet that has been proven to reverse the progression of heart disease in the majority of patients. I mean, if that's all a plant-based diet could do, reverse the number one killer of men and women, shouldn't that kind of be the default diet until proven otherwise? And the fact that it can also be so effective in preventing, arresting, reversing other leading killers like type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure, I mean, we seem to make the case for plant-based eating simply overwhelming at this point.
So, Dr. Greger, there seems to be a cottage industry today on something called the calcium score, otherwise known, I guess, as the CAC test. And you go into your doctor, you go get this score, and a lot of people like myself walk out very alarmed. It almost feels like a death sentence, if the score is too high, right? And then you have to go for a series of maybe other tests, some like a stress test, other tests like the angiogram, right? A little more invasive. And then you get put on all kinds of different maybe drugs. Maybe you can speak a little to that interesting test these days that seem to be ubiquitous.
Well, look, I mean, heart disease is a death sentence. In fact, the number one death sentence of everybody you know, right? Most likely cause of everyone you know and love is going to be heart disease. So, I mean, this is something to be taken very seriously. Now, the USPSTF, the official kind of body that determines kind of preventive medicine guidelines, does not recommend a coronary artery calcium scoring. But because you're exposed to ionizing radiation, it's actually less than kind of a typical CT scan, but it's still, there are harms associated without proven benefit. But if the benefit is you are then motivated to eat healthier. Now, all along, you should have been eating healthier, right? Before age 10 to prevent heart disease, you should be. But if the only thing that is going to get you to put down the milkshake is some horrible score, if that's going to be motivating, then damn, the test was worth it. In fact, the test could have 10 times as much radiation and make you lose a foot and still be worth it if it's going to save your life, because all of a sudden you're going to take your health seriously enough to eat and live healthier. And so it's not the test, it's what the test is going to do. Now, if you're the kind of person where it doesn't matter if you were told that you have some, horrible chance of dying, that you wouldn't change you wouldn't stop smoking, you wouldn't eat healthier, wouldn't do anything, no reason to get the test. Who cares, right?
Good point.
You only get the test if it's going to motivate you to change. Do you need the test? No, you should just change. But some people psychologically need that extra kick in the butt. So I'm all in favor of butt kicks, but even more in favor of eating healthier from day one.
So recently I was with a cancer patient and I wanted to take maybe 30 seconds to give him my point of view on something that Dr. Esselstyn, in fact, advises pretty commonly, which is have, greens throughout the day, maybe 6 portions or whatever you want to do. But I never got to that point. He cut me right off and he didn't want to hear it. Well, I found kind of fascinating because, he's undergone all the typical chemotherapy and all these other things. You can see that he was having a hard time. Do you ever find that people are just resistant to any sort of change?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we all are, right? None of us wants to be told what to do. And, you can imagine some poor cancer patient being bombarded from everybody in their lives, total strangers, with the quackiest, tinfoil bullshit, right? Oh my God, I heard about this supplement. Why
Yeah.
aren't you taking this,
Yeah.
bullshit toad skin, mushroom, whatever, right?
Shark
And then
skin,
you
right?
come along and you're like, oh my God, you should eat some collard greens. And he's like, enough already. Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally understandable, right?
Yeah.
How does he know
How does he
that you
decipher? Yeah.
actually have some evidence-based information and not just some, the Martians are here and are going to help you. So, I mean, it's a totally understandable, reaction, but it's like, this is not, I'm not just sharing your opinion. It should be clear that there's evidence to support XYZ. I mean, depending on the cancer, there's more or less evidence depending on, that the next series of books I'm going to do are actually on cancer, and we'll find out what is actually going to improve survival rates. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me at all. And in fact, even after cancer diagnoses, many people, you'd think that'd be a great window of opportunity to get people to change their lifestyles. Often it's just not. And some people take advantage of it and other people don't. And so, like, the number of men changing their diet after prostate cancer diagnosis, minuscule, even though we have good evidence to suggest improved survival with healthier eating. And it's just, people, I don't know, they're just stuck in a rut. They don't even want to think about it. They don't want to remind themselves day in, day out that they have cancer by changing what they do. I don't know. Or they have their lives that they don't particularly enjoy, and it's really not a big deal to end it early. Or they're in chronic pain, and they're like, "Thank God I'm getting the ticket out." Whatever. I mean, you can't just assume people are in the same place you are. I mean, you know, you may be like me and want to know. It's like I want, but we're taught in medical school to ask our patients on the first visit, if they had some terrible diagnosis, would they want to know? And I mean, to me, that seems so weird. Like, for me, my psychology, but of course I want to know. Holy shit, Jesus. Some people don't, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Some people
true.
don't want to know. And you want to know that now, not when they get the horrible diagnosis. Because then you're like, shit, should I tell them? I don't know. So on the first meeting, can you imagine walking in, new doctor, and they're like, okay, if you have some horrible cancer, do you want me to know? Do you want to know about it? And some people unbelievably say no, don't even tell me. Yeah, and that's good to know because you're there for them, not for you. And so you have to understand people's psychology, and we can't assume that our psychology is the same as others. And so, you got to meet people where they are.
Let's talk about America's favorite drug, or it's seemingly so, the statins. And it seems like almost every other patient, if not more, are prescribed statins. What are your overall take on that? When should
It's about
somebody have
100.
it? When should they not have it?
It's about 100 million Americans
Yeah.
on statins. So the best-selling drugs of all time.
Yeah.
And for good reason. Because they save lives. But they also carry risks. And so do you go on them or not? And that depends on your 10-year risk of having a cardiovascular event, meaning heart attack, stroke, or death, cardiovascular death. And so we have very clear guidelines, and that, at 7.5% 10-year risk, we put you on statins. If it's below a certain percent, we don't put you on statins. If in the middle, then we do something like coronary artery calcium scan to see, if we push you one way or another. There's other, factors, do you have LP little a, do you have bad family history, do you have diabetes, do you have these other things? If your LDL is super high, then we don't even look at it. We just put you straight on a statin. And so, and you just have to basically, so I have a new book. Where is it? A new book came out in October on lowering LDL, with diet. And I just go through this is how you calculate your risk. This is the decrease in risk. And it's much smaller, unfortunately, than many people realize. So the decreased, absolute risk of cardiac event, even for people at super high risk, like secondary prevention. You've already had a heart attack, trying to prevent another heart attack. Over 5 years, you might get maybe 1 or 2% drop in risk. So your risk of dying goes from 6% down to 5%. Now, I mean, that's a 20% drop, right? But still, it's only really a 1% kind of, absolute risk reduction drop. No, look, I'll take it. And on a population scale, that saves lots of lives. But because we overestimate the benefits of these drugs, we don't consider things that can be even more powerful, like dietary change.
So you go to your doctor, you get the blood test, and they're looking at your lipid panels. And question is,
Oh
what
yeah,
should our
LDL.
LDL be?
That's all we
You
care
know,
about.
because
Basically, all we care
I
about.
hear under 7, you're supposed to get it under 70. I've heard people say you try to get it under 40. I mean, it can drive you crazy to try to figure out
No,
what's
no. So
the,
the
yeah.
guidelines have changed. So there used to be guidelines like that, targets. So it used to be like a target of 70 for primary prevention, target maybe 35 for secondary prevention. They're no longer targets. So if you look at all the major clinical practice guidelines now, they all have come to lower the better, as low as possible for as long as possible. So there's no longer target. So everybody has too high of cholesterol if they can get it down. And so that's why I wrote the book, is because, oh, well, before I thought I had good cholesterol. Okay, well, now no one has good cholesterol. We have to get it down as low as possible. So I'm already cutting out things that raise my cholesterol, like the dietary cholesterol, saturated fat, trans fats. So you can't cut something out more than you're already cutting it out, right? So the next step is to add foods to your diet that actively pull cholesterol from your body. That was the idea behind the portfolio diet, but that was decades ago. So what other foods that can actually pull cholesterol from your body? So it's the viscous fiber foods, the slimy foods, the flax seeds, okra, oatmeal, eggplant. That can help. Phytosterols can help. There's all sorts of herbs and spices that can help. So I go through every single one of them. A tablespoon of black soybeans a day significantly lowers LDL cholesterol. I think I found about a dozen things that lower, on average, LDL cholesterol by 10% or more. I think that was my cutoff. Um, and so it's just kind of putting it all together and pushing your LDL as low as possible, whether or not you choose to take drugs or multiple classes of drugs. Now there's even injections, biologics that lower your cholesterol. I mean, there's lots of things we can do.
So there are people who have written books about, that statins don't help. You believe that they do help, correct?
No, no. I mean, the science is clear. I mean, when they say they don't help, they're talking about overall mortality and primary prevention. So you can make a case that there's never been a primary prevention trial that improved overall mortality. I mean, you can cut down on heart attack rates, but do you actually get people to live longer? And that's just because the people are at such low risk in primary prevention on a population scale that you'd need these absolutely massive studies with hundreds of thousands of people, and you just can't do randomized controlled trials like that. But so you really need higher risk populations to prove the case. But having fewer heart attacks and strokes is a good thing, even if mortality aside. And so reason enough at a high enough risk to go on these drugs. Now, there's certainly downside, increase your risk of diabetes. And I mean, that's why everybody isn't on it. If it just had upsides, even though small upsides, then everybody'd be on it. But because of the downsides, we only put people at particularly high risk. And so in that case, the benefits outweigh the risks.
So in closing out this show, how do we not die? What other hacks do we need to do on a daily basis to prevent this from happening?
Well, the most important component of Blue Zone longevity is diet. And so if there were just three things I would add to someone's diet, it would be beans, the healthiest source of protein, greens, the healthiest vegetables, dark green leafy vegetables, and berries, the healthiest fruits. And if there are just three things to first remove from someone's diet, be anything with trans fats, processed meat, bacon, ham, hot dogs, lunch meat, sausage, and liquid candy, sugar sweetened beverages like soda. If you just added those three things, remove those three things, you'd be a long way towards eating healthier. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can download my Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen app on iPhone and Android, free, of course, where I talk about the dozen healthiest of healthy foods I encourage people to fit into their daily routine.
So besides going on nutritionfacts.org, which I've learned a ton of stuff from, any other things people should know about you?
There's the website, everything's free on the website. Three books come out this year, three books coming out next year. Encourage people to reach out if there's anything I can do to help themselves or their families.
Thank you, Dr. Greger. We appreciate you being on the show today.
Absolutely. Happy to help out. Keep up the good work.